In the high-stakes world of the emergency room, every second counts. It's a place of controlled chaos where doctors and nurses are on the front lines, fighting epic battles against disease, trauma, and the clock. But in between the heart attacks and the broken bones, there's another, more absurd reality. These aren't the dramatic moments you see on TV. They're the weird, trivial, and downright bizarre reasons that people decided their problem was worthy of a multi-hour wait and a $1,000 bill. Get ready to explore the dumbest reasons people went to the ER. Number 1. First up on our list of head scratchers, the case of the uncomfortable mattress. Picture this: a quiet night in the emergency room. The air is thick with the scent of hand sanitizer and existential dread. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the wail of an ambulance siren. A true code red, right? Everyone braces for impact. Paramedics burst through the doors, rolling in a patient, a gentleman from a local nursing home. They're somber, professional, like they've just wrestled him from the jaws of a lion. The ER doctor, heart pounding, leans in, ready to save a life. "What's the emergency?" she asks, her voice low and serious. The paramedic, with a straight face, replies, "His mattress. It's new. He says it's uncomfortable." The room freezes. This wasn't a joke. This man called an ambulance and commandeered a team of highly trained medical professionals because his bedding wasn't up to 5-star hotel standards. We're not talking about a slipped disc, a broken spring, or even a questionable lump. We're talking about a subjective lack of coziness. You can almost see the ER staff's brains doing a factory reset. The paramedic's look says it all. "Yeah, I had to drive him here too." This is the kind of emergency that makes you wonder if we need a different kind of triage. One for actual life-threatening issues, and another for people who just need a better pillow. Number 2. Next, let's talk about the silent killer that stalks us all: the mosquito. One night, around 10 p.m., the ER received a visitor. A frantic mother and her perfectly calm school-age child. The mother, in full panic mode, was ready for a full-scale medical intervention. The reason? Her kid had a mosquito bite, that's it. No infection, no swelling, no allergic reaction. Just a little red bump that would be gone by morning. The kid, meanwhile, was just vibing, probably wondering why they were at a hospital instead of at home watching cartoons. While genuine emergencies were likely happening just down the hall, this family waited for over 4 hours. 4 hours! You could have binge-watched a season of a sitcom, flown to a different state, or, applied some anti-itch cream. The doctor finally gets to the room, takes one look, and probably has to fight the urge to just hand them a tube of hydrocortisone and a pamphlet on basic insect bites. The takeaway here? When it comes to a mosquito bite, maybe try not to make it a life-and-death situation. Save the 4-hour wait for a time when a spider with 8 legs and a taste for human flesh bites you. Number 3. The simple yet profound cough. A normal bodily function that for some is a sign of impending doom. One patient took this to an extreme, showing up at the ER with a chief complaint of a cough that had lasted a grand total of 4 hours. I can only imagine the conversation at the triage desk. What seems to be the problem? Oh, just a persistent, terrifying cough. How long has it been going on? 4 hours, doc. The end is nigh. It's a medical mystery worthy of a TV drama. The nurses are probably whispering in the halls. Do you think it's a dry cough or a wet one? Maybe it's a code blue cough. But in reality, it's just a guy who coughed a few times and decided that his body had betrayed him. He probably went home a few hours later, still coughing, but now with a bill that could make him choke for real. Because in the ER, a 4-hour cough is just a 4-hour wait for a doctor to tell you to drink some water. Number 4. This next one is a classic tale of ambition meeting. Well, reality. We've all been there. New Year's resolution season hits, you decide you're going to get that six pack, and you hit the gym for the first time in, let's say, ever. One brave soul decided to go all in, doing an intense 2-hour abdominal muscle workout. The next morning, his stomach was screaming. He probably woke up and thought, this must be what it feels like when your insides are fighting each other. Convinced he had a ruptured appendix or a stomach monster, he rushed to the ER. The doctor runs a battery of tests looking for signs of internal bleeding, a catastrophic organ failure, or maybe even a small alien life form. The diagnosis: you're just sore, buddy. You can't make this stuff up. The man's body was simply reacting to being used for the first time since the last time he had to reach for the remote. It's a valuable lesson. If your abs hurt after a workout, that means it's working. If you're in the ER, that means you're probably just an overeager gym noob. Number 5. And now we have the tale of the man who dared to venture into the sunlight. A young man described as pale and in his 20s came to the ER with a barely there sunburn. This wasn't a lobster red, peeling, second-degree burn. It was the kind of redness that only other pale people would recognize. His biggest concern: the cream his primary care physician had given him wasn't providing immediate relief. He wanted a quick fix, a miracle cure for a minor inconvenience. This is the same person who probably microwaves his meals for 45 seconds instead of 60 because he just can't wait. The ER staff must have felt like they were in a sitcom. They're dealing with life-threatening illnesses, and this guy's complaining that his skin feels a little warm. The doctor, probably a saint, had to calmly explain that sunburns take a little time to heal and that cream isn't a magic wand. He was looking for a medical intervention when all he really needed was a little patience and maybe a hat. The real emergency here wasn't his skin, but his total lack of chill. Number 6. Next up is a true medical mystery: the case of the hurting hair. A patient arrives at the ER with a very specific, very strange complaint. The doctor, no stranger to oddities, asks for the reason for the visit. The patient, with a solemn expression, replies, "My hair hurts." Now, you might think this is a joke, a gag, but this person was serious. They were experiencing a pain so profound, so deeply rooted, that it had apparently manifested in their hair follicles. The doctor, who probably went to medical school to, save lives and fix broken bones, is now faced with a diagnosis that isn't in any textbook. Is it a scalp condition, a nervous system misfire, or is it a case of the patient simply being out of their mind? We don't know. The only real remedy is a head scratch and a whole lot of confused silence. Number 7. Then we have the story of the teacup and a desperate bid for a better life. A patient arrived at the doctor's office, not with a broken arm or a persistent fever, but with a photograph. A photo of a teacup with a little bit of mold in it. The patient's request: she wanted the doctor to write a letter to the council to get her rehoused. Her reasoning? She believed this moldy teacup was a valid reason for her to be moved to a larger apartment with more windows. The ER is not a social services agency, but for some, it's the only place they think they can get a sympathetic ear. This woman was so convinced of her plight that she probably spent more time trying to get the perfect, most pathetic shot of that teacup than she did on, say, scrubbing it with a sponge. I'm not saying she didn't deserve a new apartment, but is a moldy teacup a life-threatening emergency? Probably not. Number 8. You think you've seen the worst of parents, but you haven't seen anything until you hear this one. A mom and dad brought their 9-year-old daughter to the doctor with a very unusual request. They wanted a note from the doctor stating their daughter was suffering from depression. Why? To get permission to have a dog in their apartment complex. The daughter, meanwhile, was probably just a kid who really, really wanted a puppy. This family was so determined to get a pet that they were willing to fake a major mental health condition. Imagine the conversation. Honey, the doctor says you're clinically sad. But the good news is we can get a golden retriever. It's a shocking example of how some people view a medical diagnosis as a tool for their own convenience, with no regard for the actual seriousness of the issue. Number 9. Love is a battlefield, and apparently, so is the emergency room. We have the case of the wedding ring. A man gained some weight and, like many of us, took off his wedding ring. His wife noticed. An argument ensued. To prove his devotion, or perhaps just to end the fight, he jammed the ring back on his finger. His finger, not surprisingly, swelled up like a balloon, trapping the ring. The man then went to the ER, where a team of medical professionals had to use a ring cutter to saw it off. He went from a marital dispute to a medical emergency, all because he couldn't just admit that maybe the ring didn't fit anymore. It's a story that perfectly illustrates the fine line between "I'm sorry, honey," and "I need a doctor to cut this off my finger." And let's be honest, the ER staff probably had a good laugh and then billed him a small fortune for the inconvenience. Number 10. And now we have the fashion-forward emergency. A patient came to the ER in a full-blown panic. Their skin was turning blue, a classic sign of a level 1 emergency. The team immediately sprang into action, fearing the worst. A blood clot, a severe lack of oxygen, something catastrophic. They're probably thinking, this is it. This is the real thing. But upon closer inspection, the medical professionals realized something was off. The blue wasn't from a medical condition, it was from the patient's new jeans. That's right. The patient was so alarmed by the dye rubbing off on their skin that they ran to the ER. While some people might just see this as a harmless mistake, it's a terrifying moment for the ER staff who had to triage a situation that was in reality just a laundry mishap. It's a testament to the fact that sometimes the most serious-looking emergencies are nothing more than a case of bad new jeans. Number 11. Next, a masterclass in medical-grade paranoia, the case of the non-existent liver parasites. Imagine you're an ER doctor, already swamped with real emergencies, and a patient walks in with a grave expression. "Doctor," she says, "I need to be tested for liver parasites." You ask her about her symptoms, her travel history. And here's the kicker, she's completely fine. She's never been out of the country, hasn't eaten anything suspicious, nothing. Her reason for the visit? I had lunch with a missionary who had been to Africa, and I heard about them. Yes, you heard that right. This woman was so convinced that she'd contracted a tropical disease from a lunch conversation that she showed up at the hospital. Her brain, apparently, took a single unrelated anecdote and turned it into a full-blown medical emergency. The missionary probably just told a story to make small talk, completely unaware that he was about to cause an expensive and utterly pointless use of a hospital's resources. The only thing she caught at that lunch was a case of extreme hypochondria. Number 12. Next, a shining example of knowing just enough to be dangerously wrong. The case of the abnormal pupils. A mother brings her daughter into the ER, and the moment the doctor enters the room, the mom is on the attack. Her pupils are not normal, she screams, pulling out her phone and shining a flashlight directly into her daughter's eyes. As the light hits, the daughter's pupils do exactly what they're supposed to do. They constrict. The mom, however, points to this completely normal biological response and yells, "See, that's not normal." The doctor, a professional who spent years studying the human eye, has to calmly explain to her that a pupil constricting in bright light is, in fact, the very definition of normal. You can almost hear the doctor's internal monologue. Yes, ma'am, that's what we call reflex, not a sign of the apocalypse. Your daughter's eyes are working perfectly, which is more than I can say for your logic. It's a perfect illustration of how a little bit of knowledge combined with a whole lot of confidence can lead to a very confusing and embarrassing trip to the hospital. Number 13. And now, for a tale that has been told in every ER for decades, a story so absurd it has become a legend. The apple in the rectum. A man arrived at the ER in obvious distress. The doctors quickly ran tests and discovered a foreign object. The man with a straight face and a narrative so detailed it could only be a lie claimed that he had fallen on a fruit basket while vacuuming naked. The sheer number of unbelievable details, the fruit basket, the vacuuming, the nudity, makes it a work of art. The ER staff, who have seen it all, know this is a fabrication. No one falls on an apple in such a precise manner. The story is a desperate attempt to avoid admitting to a truly bizarre choice. The moral of the story: if you're going to vacuum in the nude, maybe move the fruit bowl first. Or, just don't. Number 14. Halloween is a time for costumes and candy, but for some, it's a time for a trip to the ER. Take the case of the angel with the glued shut eyes. A college student preparing for a Halloween party was going all out with her costume. She was a Victoria's Secret angel with the wings, the nails, the works. As she was finishing her look, she made one small, catastrophic error. She picked up the wrong tube. Instead of using eyelash glue for her fake lashes, she grabbed her nail glue and sealed her eyes shut. The glitter and drama of her costume quickly faded, replaced by the grim reality of a full-scale medical emergency. The ER staff had to spend hours patiently soaking off the super strong glue. The biggest tragedy: she probably missed the party she worked so hard to get ready for. Number 15. Next, a Halloween story that could have ended in a real tragedy, but instead ended in a lesson about assumptions. A team of paramedics received an urgent call. They found a college student passed out in the middle of the road. With multiple bruises and lacerations all over his body, they immediately assumed he had been hit by a car. A full-blown trauma team was mobilized. Surgeons were on standby, and every available resource was dedicated to saving this young man's life. But as the nurses cleaned his wounds, they started to peel off. One by one, the bruises and lacerations disappeared. They were part of his Halloween costume. His only real injury? A massive hangover. The EMTs had spent critical time and resources on a party-goer with a bad night and some impressive makeup. They had been pranked by a drunk guy and an ambulance ride. It's the kind of story that makes you laugh, then makes you realize just how much these small, frivolous visits can impact the system. Number 16. And now for a tale of parental control gone completely off the rails. A pair of parents, deeply concerned, brought their 20-year-old daughter to the emergency room for a psychiatric evaluation. The pressing, life altering reason? She didn't want to go to church. You read that correctly. They didn't take her to a church or a therapist or a spiritual retreat. They drove her to a hospital, a place where people are actively bleeding and having heart attacks because their grown up child wasn't feeling the sermon. You have to wonder what the triage nurse wrote down. Chief complaint: daughter is a heathen. What were they hoping for? A doctor's note that reads, patient is suffering from a lack of faith and requires divine intervention, or at least a strong-willed youth pastor. This isn't a mental health crisis. It's a family drama playing out on the world's most expensive stage. Number 17. Next, a story so mundane it hurts. A patient arrives at the ER, looking pale and clutching his finger. He tells the triage nurse he has a laceration. The entire staff gears up for a serious wound. They're thinking deep cut, maybe a severed tendon, something worthy of a story. They wheel him back, the doctor pulls on their gloves, and the moment of truth arrives. The patient unveils his injury. It's a paper cut, just a small, superficial line on his finger. He had waited a full 2 hours for a doctor to confirm that a piece of office stationery had indeed won the battle. He was given a Band-Aid and a bill that was almost certainly more expensive than a whole box of said Band-Aids. This is the kind of emergency that makes doctors wish for a simple apostodoc line. Is this a real emergency? Press 1. Is this a paper cut? Press 2, and please go home. Number 18. Then there's the truly cosmetic catastrophe. A woman who had just gotten a fresh manicure was playing basketball. She broke a nail. You can almost hear the tiny crack that launched a $1,000 hospital bill. But this wasn't just any broken nail. She had a wedding to attend in a few days. So, naturally, she went to the ER. The same place where doctors are resetting dislocated shoulders and treating severe burns. She was there to have a medical professional assess the damage to her nail bed and presumably prescribe some kind of medical-grade superglue. The irony here is thick. She probably had to wait hours, all while a nurse was quietly judging her life choices. One nurse who saw a similar case even told the patient she would have to wait at least 6 hours because a broken nail isn't an emergency. Some problems just can't be solved by a scalpel. Number 19. Some people's reasons for visiting the ER are so vague they barely qualify as reasons at all. Take the patient who came in with the chief complaint of pain in my toe. No, he didn't stub it. There was no cut, no injury, no ingrown nail. It just hurt. This is the ultimate non-emergency. It's not an acute medical condition. It's just a general feeling of mild annoyance that the patient decided was worthy of a multi-hour wait. What's a doctor to do? Order an X-ray to look for a ghost? Prescribe a placebo? The only diagnosis you can really give is you are a person with a toe. It's the kind of visit that makes you realize some people treat the ER like a human complaint department. Number 20. And finally, my personal favorite, the marital dispute. A couple arrived at the ER looking tense. The doctor, bracing for an argument over an illicit affair or a family tragedy, asks what the problem is. The husband speaks up. We're having a family dispute over which is the better pain reliever, paracetamol or ibuprofen. That's it. They couldn't settle it at home. They couldn't Google it. So they went to a place that deals with medical crises to get a tiebreaker. Imagine the scene, a trauma bay, bright lights, a doctor in a gown, and this couple arguing about Advil versus Tylenol. The doctor is probably thinking, I spent 8 years in medical school for this. The only correct answer is to tell them both to take a nap and stop wasting everyone's time. So there you have it. A journey into the twisted, hilarious, and often baffling world of the American emergency room. It's a place where heroes save lives and where people show up with paper cuts and bruised egos. These aren't just funny anecdotes. They're a testament to the fact that when it comes to human behavior, you really can't make this stuff up. If you found these stories as unbelievable as we did, do us a favor and smash that like button. And while you're at it, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the absurd. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever had a reason to go to the ER that, in hindsight, was completely ridiculous? Or are you a healthcare worker with a story so wild you couldn't tell your family about it? Drop your stories in the comments below.